What's up, everybody? I'm so excited today because I'm here with the great Kiefer, and I've been so excited about doing this episode for a really long time. I actually moved to LA a few months ago, and we've been kind of figuring out our schedules, and finally, because Kiefer's been on tour for 8 months now, our schedules are aligned, and we are getting to sit down and do this episode. So, man, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for being here. For those of you that don't know about Kiefer, Kiefer is a prolific musician, pianist, producer, composer. I've listened to most of your discography. It's absolutely incredible and just incredibly tasteful too. The use of the sound palettes is beautiful. And so Kiefer has produced with Kate Renata, Anderson, Paak, just to name a few people. Your resume precedes you.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I would actually love it, man, if you'd be down to just play something for us just to get things started before we jump into questions.
Sure, yeah. Let's see. Let's make something up if that's cool.
Dude, that was absolutely gorgeous, man.
Oh, thanks.
And I know it was just like off the cuff too, just so much beautiful harmonic motion in there.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, man. I already got like 7 more questions that just popped into my head. This always happens. I also want to say a huge thanks to Casio for sponsoring today's episode. More on that later. Well, dude, first of all, yeah, thank you so much for being here, man.
Oh, dude, yeah, we did it. We finally did it. We've been trying to do it for a couple months, and we worked it out.
Yeah, we figured it out, and this is amazing. Actually, you walked here, so
Yeah,
that's pretty
right
incredible.
down the street.
Yeah. I gotta say, after hearing that, I had a whole plan. I had a whole plan for this podcast, but I kind of just want to go right into harmony, if that's cool with you. I like to just nerd out as quickly as possible.
Dude, I would love to do that. I have some questions for you too, I'm sure.
Oh, cool. Well, feel free to.
About naturally.
Sounds great. Yeah, man. So first thing I would say, so I was noticing, of course, some really beautiful chord substitutions happening in what you were doing. And one thing that I really loved was I would hear you do a substitution, and I think that's something that a lot of people do, is they do the substitution, but we still get back to the original location that was expected.
Yeah.
But you would do the substitution and just be like, nah, I'm gonna go where the substitution wants to take me. So yeah, I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about your philosophy when it comes to substitutions in general, substitutions, reharmonizations of a melody. Are there any specific rules or structures that you like to follow yourself?
Oh, man. Yeah, so that's such a great question. Well, I think the substitution in question might be the one where I go, I'm playing body and soul, obviously. So I go like... Then... So I believe that's how Mulgrew Miller plays that. So the short answer is that I heard somebody do it, I loved it, and I love to play that every so often. I don't think I did it the first day, but I think the second and the final A I did play it that way. And then you go, and then you continue. And so to answer the question, which is like, why do I do substitutions? It's creating a feeling, right? And in this case, it's exactly as you described it. We're going somewhere else, and then you kind of snap back. It's almost like it's a tangent, right? It's like, and this tune is, professing your love to somebody, and maybe you're just getting so caught up in something that it just goes over there, and it comes, I don't know. I mean, I'm not the type of player that does a lot of substitutions. I mean, I do, but not like in a really crazy way. I don't do like really fancy pyrotechnics in my playing. I play very slow and simple and soft. That's kind of like how I play. And so for me, like doing a substitution is more about, not about being impressive, but just like playing a feeling, like playing a tune. And I think, I'm not the most like technical guy. So for me, the substitutions are really like, they're kind of practical. It's like, I want to do this. So I think, I listen to people, I hear things that I like, and then I come up with my own things, and then I just like kind of log in my brain like how things feel, and
So it's kind of like instinctual at this point for you.
Yeah. That question might not have been the answer might not have been the most practical, but
no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes total sense, and honestly, that's what I would kind of expect, from someone who's spent a lot of time just taking pieces of vocabulary or whatever you want to call it from people that you love. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Totally.
So to go further down that rabbit hole, I actually watched some of your videos. For anybody who does not know this, you have an amazing YouTube channel that people should check out. You're very generous with sharing your expertise, and I know a lot of the time you're actually streaming live as well, so that's really cool. Whenever you're not constantly on the road. So everyone should definitely be sure to check out Kiefer's socials for sure. So much to learn there for us, jazz piano nerds and students. But yeah, man, so my next question is, in one of the videos I saw, you were talking about the relationships between basically just keys that are somewhat close together on like the circle of fifths. And I was kind of curious if you could elaborate on, are there any patterns that you like to follow for borrowing chords from different keys?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, there's got to be so many. Yeah, so a simple way I can describe this would be, if you were just to look at just 4-note chords, I guess 7th chords in each key, in the key of C, that would give you 7 different chords. And when you move up or down a perfect fifth, right, like you only change one note, and the reason why is because all the notes in the scales are fifths apart. You're familiar with the whole was it, The Lydian Concept by George Russell?
Man, if you could go over it, that'd be amazing.
I mean, I'm not even that deep into it, but the idea is that all the notes in the scales are perfect fifths apart. So if you go like C major and you start on F, which that would give you these 7 consecutive perfect fifths. And that's why when you transpose up a perfect fifth, you keep all the same notes except for one.
Got it.
You know? And so in a way, F Lydian is really like the most major. You know, Jacob Collier talks about this a lot too. But anyway, so because of that, that's why there's so many shared chords. Because, for example, if I play, this might be a really crazy place to start, but if I play, you know, these notes, for instance, these notes are A minor 7. This is inside the C scale. And this also is inside the F scale, right? Here's the F scale, would be these notes. And so here it is here. And that means it's also in the, let's see, so I said F, C, and G. It would be in G as well, right? So G would be these notes. So it's still in there as well. So A minor 7, as I just demonstrated, could be in the key of C, it could be in the key of F, it could be in the key of G. It's the 2 for something, the 3 for something, and the 6 for something. If there are 3 minor 7 chords in each key, that means there's 3 keys for each minor 7 chord. So when I play this, that could take me to somewhere like F major land, and it could take me to somewhere like G major land. For example, in F major, a chord which is unique to that key out of the 2 would be B flat, for instance. And then for G major, I play something like B minor. And so what's really cool is like if I play those 3 chords in a row, let's say I go from here to here, that G major chord, or maybe that B minor chord rather, sorry. And then I can play that A minor chord in between this and that B flat major 7. And what's really cool about this 3 chord combination, especially if I go back to A minor as my 4th chord, come back, is that between any 2 chords, no key change occurred, right? Like there's no, if the song was only these 2 chords, there would be no key change. And then if I had a second song where I go from this chord to this chord, there's still no key change occurring. But between those 3 chords, we did indeed change a key in the end. And so long as I don't provide more information and leave it really open-ended, because the second I go like this, you know, it's clearly G to B flat. But if I leave it open-ended like this, no key changing is happening in between any 2 consecutive chords. Is that not the smoothest way to modulate?
Dude, that is amazing.
Tell me how this is smoother. Like, I think the way that, you know, we talk about harmony sometimes is a little disingenuous. Like, it's just, we're just saying things because we've been saying it for hundreds of years. And I love those ideas. But I think there's also these other ways to look at it too, where it's like, harmony is just a combination of notes. It's a set of color palettes, and that's just like I think that's like a really plain and simple way to look at it. Like you're going from these sets of notes to these sets of notes, and we're phasing over them like a color wheel, like really smoothly. Like it's a really smooth modulation to me. Anyway, yeah, that's why I think about the circle of fifths so much. So then, oh man, there's so many other things. It gets so deep because you can also evaluate how unstable or stable a chord change is by how far you're leaping at any given moment. In this case, I wasn't really leaping. It was like kind of smoothing over between the keys, but I can also just jump. That's also fine too. Like I can jump from F to G, that's 2 keys along the circle fifths. I can jump from F to A flat, which is 3 keys. I can go from F to A or D flat, that'd be 4 keys. I can go from F to G flat, which is 5, or down to E, which is 5. And I can go to B major, which is 6. And the further the key distance, 6 being the maximum, the further the key distance, the more unstable the chord change is.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And is that talking about, you know, when we talk about how stable it is, are we talking about polarity as well? I've heard that term used.
Polarity, what does that mean?
I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that term.
I think it has to do with
up.
how many notes within the chord want to resolve, essentially.
Oh, interesting.
If I'm remembering correctly.
That's cool.
Maybe when I'm in a podcast, I shouldn't bring up the terms that I don't know.
Actually, I don't know. Maybe it's a great time to do it. I guess.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
People are going to look that up.
Yeah, true. Everybody, please look this up and let us know in the comments. Let us know. Man, that's really, really cool. It's interesting. I've never really thought of it in that way. So I guess two questions. Number one,
Yeah.
you were very quick to immediately point out the relationships between the different keys.
Yeah.
So it seems like, as you yourself kind of said, it's something you've thought about quite a bit. Is it something that you still think about for composition, or is it something that is now completely built into your ear at this point?
Yeah, I only use tools when I need them, there's, if you're building something in your house, there's certain tools that you're not going to need, so why would you use them? So yeah, I don't think of it that way that often. Usually when I write, it's completely free. That's actually very important to mention, that I don't usually think of this stuff. This has been like integrated to where I don't really think about it. But then occasionally, yeah, I will bust that tool out if I have a chord change that is like too unstable or not unstable enough. Then I start to think in those I can start to think in those kind of, those terms, those theoretical terms of like, how can I make this more stable? How can I bring this in? Or how can I push this away and make this more crazy? And then sometimes during soloing too, I'll be thinking about especially if you're doing a vamp, if you're playing over for example, if you're playing over D minor, and I'm gonna start thinking about pushing things from Dorian to Aeolian to Phrygian. That's also the same thing. You're pushing along the circle. So I think about those things too, only when it's useful. Yeah. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's part of your toolkit for when you need it and you can draw it. So you kind of said a word that I love to use on my channel, which is the word integrate.
Hell yeah.
So I'm kind of curious if you could elaborate a little bit on taking it one step back. What did the process of integration look like? And what does it still look like potentially to you today in terms of, okay, here's this new theoretical concept. I really like the sound. What does your process look like for getting that to be natural in your playing?
That's a good question. The way I integrated that, that's a good question. I think, I just said it again. I don't know how to answer it. I think for me, it came from learning a lot of tunes, this particular skill. This might not have been, of all the things I've been developing and integrating, this one might have been the least formulaic for me. But it was just learning tunes. And for example, the difference between this, an E minor chord that is the 3 of something and that is the 2 of something, for instance. Kind of like what we were saying earlier. At some point I did have to integrate it into my mind that when this is a 3 chord, it has a C natural in it, right? If this is in the context of C and this is the 3, then this chord should have a C in it. Well, should, you know what I mean? For example, if I'm playing Misty, I'll play in C, Funny thing about Misty, when people play this tune, a lot of times, the melody is, and a lot of piano players, when they're comping with vocals, will play this. And the vocalist, unless they're very good, that can throw them off so easily. They're trying to find that note, So it's important to play that with for example, a C natural and not an F sharp, You could even go, which is and so on. So yeah, at some point I had to learn playing 3 chords like this is really nice, even though it's literally 1, 2, 3, and 5. And after everything I had learned in playing voicings and trying to have a lot of notes, I learned that for 3 chord, really important to just know how to do this, even without the 7. Super useful. People play it all the time. Bill Evans plays this all the time. Barry Harris plays this all the time. Bud Powell plays this all the time. We shouldn't be afraid of just that. So I think I started playing tunes where this was a shape and just noticing it. And every tune has that happen at some point almost, right? Where you could play a 1 chord with a 3 in the bass, just move it. Even if I did, I was doing Body and Soul, right? I'm sure I could do it here, for example. I could do it there. And just make sure I have that. So then, I started in songs just being okay, I'm going to play a bunch of, and I learned by playing ballads, really. I'm that's my favorite thing to do, is just play ballads all day long. Yeah, so I'll just find those 3 chords and do them.
Wow. Man, that's such an interesting point.
Actually, I literally wrote this down because I had a feeling it might come up today. I have an exercise I made this morning that was like very similar to this. Is it cool if I show it to you?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it yet, and this is like horrible chicken scratch. It'd be funny if the camera sees it. So yeah, I wrote this exercise this morning because I don't know. I guess I had a feeling you were gonna ask. No, I don't know. Yeah, this is me attempting to integrate something currently, actually. So basically, these are just a set of chord changes that I like. They're a little like slightly classical in nature, but as I've gotten older, I've realized it's actually the same. Like, you know, especially as I get into like more Barry Harris stuff. Anyway, but here's the chord change. Basically, I start off in B flat, and I'm gonna play just a bunch of like triads that I really like, especially ones that I don't think about enough. Like, so it goes like this. It's a B flat, that's one chord. Then we're gonna play the 5 of the 6, which is, you know, D7, but with A in the bass. Then we'll get to G minor. And then I'll play the flat 6 in the bass. And this is like the 4 minor. And then this is, you know, the 5 in the bass, the 1 over the 5. And then we've got like the 5 over the 4, taking us to the 3, you know. And I originally wrote this with like G minor over D, but I'm gonna actually play this the way I was mentioning, which is like playing a 1 chord with a 3 in the bass, B flat. And so, yeah, I think in the past I would do a lot of exercises like this, you know. Anyway, the way this ends is kind of cool. I go back to the flat 6 in the bass again, and then I just go up a half step. And this becomes a B chord with a 5 in the bass, and then I just play a bunch of other. And then it's just fancy stuff I could explain, or maybe people watching can just slow that down and watch if they want. And then I go up a half step and I do it up here now. I haven't learned this yet, so. Right, and then we get to C. Anyway, yeah, like, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, like not playing Chopin per se, but like learning Chopin chord changes, and then doing exercises like this has been a really good way for me to integrate. So like, yeah, having some sort of exercise, and then some sort of like tune, like knowing how to play it in tunes. And for me, that's ballads. I'm playing ballads all day long.
Dude, that's so beautiful. And what I love about it is that you basically, to integrate, you created an incredibly musical context, a really musical exercise or example, right?
Yeah. Understanding something is liking it, is loving it. You know, that there's a Thich Nhat Hanh quote, which is the mind of understanding and the mind of love are the same. Like when you love something, it's you're seeking to understand it. And on the flip side, understanding something is loving it. And I think good musicians are showing you what they love about it when they're doing it. I love showing people why I love certain tunes. Like, man, that turnaround feels so good. I'm going to show you how good it feels. You know, like that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely, man.
I don't know if I do it well, but that's the goal for sure. Yeah.
I would imagine your listeners probably think you do a pretty good job of it.
Well,
but man, I feel like actually what you just said too, it's almost something that we can forget sometimes, right? Like, why are we learning this tune? Sometimes we forget what parts of it we actually love and what parts of it we're just kind of practicing for some technical reason. So, it's a really nice reminder that just kind of hit for me. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, dude.
Of course. And also, I'll just take this moment to say, if you like that exercise, everybody, Kiefer's got an amazing course that I've taken part of so far. I didn't get through the whole thing yet, but really great course. Yeah, what's the website for that?
It's on my website, kiefermusic.com.
Cool.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, you can find it there. Yeah, kiefermusic.com.
So far, you've mentioned Chopin as a really great influence, and I love what you said about, you know, it was just kind of something you said quickly in passing, but you said not necessarily learning his pieces, but taking from him and maybe taking the parts that you love. Yeah. So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about that process. What does it look like? What is, I guess, you know, in jazz, we sometimes call that process transcription. Sometimes people get mad on my channel because I'll say transcription, but nothing was actually written down.
Yeah.
And then, so, we're talking transcription.
Very,
the
very
idea
common misnomers.
Yeah. Exactly, stuff like that. So I apologize. If I'm using the term too broadly. But yeah, so what is that process? What does it look like for you in the past? And what does it look like for you now? Do you have any advice that you would give people about taking what you love? And is there any systematic process you follow, or is it more just kind of?
Yeah, I used to transcribe a lot. Like when I was in college, I transcribed something damn near every day. I had like a little rule for myself, which is that if I had nothing to practice, when in doubt, transcribe something or copy something. This turned out to be not the best approach for me. Turned out I was just transcribing stuff addictively and wasn't retaining or integrating anything that meaningfully. But a lot of it was obviously extremely useful. The stuff I did retain, the stuff that I did love, was the stuff that I retained. Again, if you just build your musicianship around what you love to do, expand what you love, find new things that you love, and then just enjoy doing them, practice starts to come a lot easier. Especially for someone like me who was not the most talented musician, getting into music school. It just, anyways. Yeah, you just gotta love what you're doing. But sorry, I forgot, I got off.
Well, dude, honestly,
again,
I sometimes I love getting off track, because for me now I'm like, all right, what you just said is in a way kind of profound. I think it would be really inspiring for people, right? You just said, all right, I wasn't the most talented musician getting into music school. So what was that journey like for you? Because now your career, you have a really amazing, admirable, successful career, and you have a really unique musical voice. So that's something I want to ask you about anyway today. So I'm kind of curious, a couple different questions in here that we can talk about. But so one of them would be, what were some of the challenges that you maybe faced in feeling like, oh, maybe I'm not going into music school as the best one here or whatever. Right. How did you kind of get through that? And how did you turn that into this musical voice that so many people love?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is, I was extremely lucky with just the support of my family and friends. My dad was a super supportive guy. I think the one advantage, I said was, he's passed. I'm sorry, Dad. He's very much still here. I think the one advantage I had going into school was I loved jazz so much. I just had it's like I had a battery pack on that just wasn't gonna come off. I just loved learning it, as I'm sure you did too, And I don't know. I think over time I just got even closer and closer, and very intentionally so, consciously thinking all the time, just getting closer and closer to my favorite stuff. There's this diagram I love showing my students. It's called ikigai, which is a Japanese word. And some person made this diagram. It's in a book I read, whatever. But I think about it all the time. The top circle is what you love to do, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs, and just trying to do what's in the middle. And the notion that learning to do all those four things would sacrifice the other three or one of them or whatever, it's not necessarily true if you can find the one that's in that middle of that Venn diagram. And so I think that's just what I did. When I was in school, was thinking what do I love to do? What am I good at? What do people want to hear from me as well? And then kind of expanding all of those things, falling in love with new kinds of music, getting better at new kinds of music, my audience changing over time. And I was not the most talented kid coming in for sure. And I went to UCLA, which wasn't even that big or well-known of a program. It's not like I was at USC, which just right across the way had a crazy program. CSUN also had a crazy program. But despite that, I think I just wanted to do it so badly, dude. I just love music so much. We all do, It's just, you just keep doing it.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
If you're lucky enough, if you're fortunate enough.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
again, all my answers are super vague.
No, dude, it's all good. I mean, I think we're just here to hear how you think. I
practice all the time. I had to learn how to love practice too. That was the big thing too, because I was not a good practicer.
What do you mean?
Well, when I was in high school, I didn't practice at all. I still hadn't wrapped my brain around the fact that this stuff needs to be practiced. There was still this remnant of thinking that like jazz was just like something some people can just do and some people just can't. And like for some reason I thought that when I was in high school. Maybe not even consciously, but subconsciously I felt like, oh, maybe I'll be able to do this, maybe I won't, and this isn't under my control. I didn't realize there was like a practical set of like skills that you can develop, and you know, there are teachers who will literally show you how to do it. So I didn't really understand that.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
And there weren't like, I mean, not to pander, but there weren't resources like this in as much abundance to where that sort of information was like obvious to me. Like I really just thought, we'll see what happens. Like I didn't realize, yeah, you can practice this stuff. And,
no, dude, that is
my
so
teacher
fair.
Tamir like taught me how to practice the stuff, you know.
Wow, yeah, that makes so much sense because I think back on my high school days, and I think like a huge, just resource, but also advantage that I had was just the sheer luck of living near someone who was an incredible jazz musician and could teach me. You know, and back then, as you said, we actually didn't have YouTube and just a constant abundance of wisdom and videos, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But yeah, for me, like what I take practically from your answer, just like off the cuff, is like, you know, what you said, learning to practice what you love, or loving what you practice, whichever way you want to say it. Like that's so huge to me, and also I would imagine probably contributes to having your own, you know, unique musical voice.
It's all intertwined, I think.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
And so speaking of that unique musical voice, obviously one thing that's a huge part of what you do is the production side of things. So production, composition, synthesis, of course, you know, you have a unique sonic palette. So as someone who's spent more time studying the acoustic piano parts of jazz, got lots of questions for you. Sure. But I guess my first question would be, what did your journey getting into making music on the computer or making recorded music, what did that look like? How did you get inspired to start doing it, and how did you start building up your skills in doing it?
Yeah, well, I got into beat making as like an art form through my sister's boyfriend when she was in college. I came home and he gave me a mix CD of Jay Dilla and MF Doom and, you know, the Stones Throw thing, Madlib. And so I must have been 15 or 16, probably 16. And yeah, I just listened to that music, absolutely loved it. Just the back of my head blew off. I thought it was amazing. So now I had already been like making music on GarageBand, which actually looking back are kind of like just beats. I was making beats basically. They just weren't the kinds that I was hearing later when I fell in love with like Dilla and stuff. And so, yeah, I remember in college I was probably making a beat like once a month. Just like randomly I'd just sit down and just like make one. But it wasn't like something I wanted to be good at yet. And then I think my sophomore year, junior year started to pick up, started doing like once a week, a couple a week. And then when I was 23 or 24, I was, you know, playing on a lot of, it was like the first time I was like doing sessions, but it was like more casual sessions with producers, people like Mind Design and John Wayne and Swarby. Those are kind of the three main people I was working with.
Amazing.
And I just kind of realized like I was enjoying this form of music making so much, and I also really wanted to be doing what they were doing. And I realized that because of my access to them, I could learn really quickly from people who are experts, who are like masters at this, you know, that have made countless albums doing it. So I was very lucky. I was already in the studio watching people like make stuff on Ableton, and I'm getting mix tips from John Wayne. He taught me so much about how to mix.
Wow, man.
Yeah, and then I remember, so when it came to like actually developing the skills part of the question, I saw a video one day. I used to like sit at home and smoke weed and watch like masterclass videos of like people just giving workshops from various fields of study, be it they're like whether it was like a Hollywood director or a writer, or I was just looking up random athletes, whatever. I'm just like looking up random people talking about how to become good at something. That's like something I'm obsessed with. It's just self-improvement itself. And I saw this video of Ray Bradbury, the great writer who wrote, did he write Fahrenheit 451?
I believe he did.
Yeah.
Martian Chronicles, Illustrated Man. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's giving this awesome workshop at a college somewhere, like back in the 80s or something. And someone asks him, how do you become a great writer? Which is like a super broad question. But he actually had an amazing answer. And he said, write every day, read every day, right? That's output and input. And on the input side, on the reading side, you should read a short story every day. You should read 10 poems, and every week you should finish a novel. And every day you should write a poem, every week you should write a short story, and every year you should finish a novel. And after a year, you will have read 365 short stories, 3,650 poems, and 52 novels. You will know a lot in 1 year. On the writing side, you will have written 365 poems, 52 short stories, and a novel completed. But where it really gets interesting is after 10 years, at which time you will have read 36,000 poems. Is that right? No. Yes, 36,000 poems. 3,000, what would it be? 520 novels and 3,000. It's just like you would be a master of literature. And then on the other side, on the writing side, you will have written 10 novels, 520 short stories, and 3,000 poems. You'll be a living master. And I was like, oh my God.
It's that easy.
It's that easy. Like, I think, or it's not easy, but it's simple. Running a marathon is not easy, but it is a simple concept. Like, this is just a long-term consistency thing. And I think, again, it was just one of those moments that shattered my prior belief that this fixed mindset I had of music, some people got it, some people don't. And this is no, this actually levels the playing field. If I just make a beat every single day, if I release one on SoundCloud every week, and if I make an album every year, I think that's a pretty good place to start. And if I listen to a new record every week and if I'm upping my listening and upping my creating, and just continuing to practice every day, which, for an hour or whatever, I think I'm going to do fine. So that was around the age of 23. And so, or 24, I think, because I put out a song every week on SoundCloud in 2016. I put out my album a year later, at which time I had a big following. So I literally just did my version of that video for the first few years, and it helped immensely. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. That's actually really, really inspiring. And I love the distinction you made. It's not easy, but sometimes it is just if you are just willing to put in that consistency and dedication, it is simple. That's really well said.
Yeah, simple and easy.
Yeah, two different things.
Yeah, simple and easy. I love thinking about the difference between simple and easy. A lot of things are very simple. Most things are very simple in music. It's just not easy. This is not easy. Meditating is very simple, but it is not necessarily easy.
I mean, I can speak from personal experience and say even just getting yourself to do it every day.
Yeah.
Although people would say, stop saying getting yourself to do it. My phrasing's already off. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I just love that concept. It's inspiring because I think a question a lot of us ask is, how do we get there? What does that journey look like? What do I do? How is my journey different? And sometimes it's really nice to just hear an answer like that. So it's amazing that you heard that Ray Bradbury answer and then you did it and clearly it worked. That's just such a cool thing to hear. So for anyone who's watching or listening, I hope that offers also a similar level of almost comfort, because hearing you say it for me even offers a level of comfort, with the pursuits that I have right now,
Totally. I mean, I think what we're doing right now is evidence of a great deal of manifestation on your part, no?
I think so. Yeah, you're right.
Every single thing in this room, there's a lot of gear behind the cameras and stuff. Everything in this room, there was a moment where you had to make the purchase or you had to plan where it was going to go, and then it actually arrived and you had to unbox it, you had to set up. All those things are small steps that you have to, all of those were little goals and deadlines and things that you do. I think sometimes when we're following our dreams, we're writing things down, we're saying affirmations, but we're not committing things to action. This took a great deal of action, you know what I mean, to do this.
I do, yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think with my students, I try to encourage them all the time to just take action. Make an album, make an EP or an LP, or make a music video. Do something that you have not done before. Go for it. Book a show before you're ready. Don't wait till you're ready. Don't wait till you're ready.
Yeah, man, I totally get that.
You did not wait. I'm glad you didn't wait. This is awesome.
Yeah, still a work in progress.
Yeah.
But we're really getting there.
Yeah.
And also, actually, hilariously, now that you say that, having you booked today was also a huge part of getting that process along. It's part of why my other weighted keyboard is literally out in the hallway. Didn't quite make it into the room today. But also, man, it reminds me of this phrase that's one of like my go-to kind of mantras. I can't remember where it originated, but I'm someone who's sometimes been a bit paralyzed about what direction to go in. And sometimes that's in life, sometimes that's in love, sometimes that's in music. It's been in music a lot. And this phrase was just, sometimes the way to move forward is just to move in any direction at all.
Yeah.
So just pick a direction and move, and you actually are moving forward. If you're not sure what to do, it's like what you said, every day I'm going to do this. It doesn't have to be your greatest composition ever.
Right.
And actually, going down that line of thought, actually, no, I'm gonna save that. First, I wanna get us back to the keyboard for a second here.
Sure.
Now, before we continue, I just want to take a second to thank Casio again for sponsoring this episode. The keyboard in front of me is actually the Casio Privia PX S6000. This is part of their new Privia line. As you can see, this is just a visually gorgeous keyboard that I've been using for many months now, and I'm absolutely loving having it as my daily practice piano. They've taken the time to really make this a beautiful instrument to both look at and actually physically use. The keybed is really nice, it's fairly quiet. I love it. Again, I've been practicing on it sometimes hours a day consistently, and it feels great on my hands. I feel like I've been making a lot of progress, and I've always just enjoyed sitting down to play it. It also may sound silly, but for me, the visual aesthetic of an instrument is actually really, really important. And some of the details of this design have also really led to me loving this instrument even more. For example, there's actual spruce on the sides of the keys. Those little touches really help it feel like a real piano. There's also wood style paneling, which helps the aesthetic. Love these stands. And of course, the actual interface is all just controlled by touch with these little lights. And it's just a really simple, minimalistic looking keyboard. Again, I've really fallen in love with this instrument. As far as digital pianos go, this is one of my favorites that I've used and one of the most comparable experiences that I've had to an actual real piano. And if you're interested in learning more about the Privia line, check out the affiliate link in the description of this video. And if you're streaming this podcast, you can also just go to noahkellman.com/Casio and you will find the affiliate link there. I also want to give a quick shout out here to the gorgeous Selviano Grand Hybrid Piano. This is a really interesting instrument, a very unique instrument, because it's a digital keyboard that I get to actually use for MIDI and production, but it literally has real physical hammers built in. So usually digital instruments are essentially creating keybeds to try and emulate a real hammer action keybed or piano, right? This one literally is a digital instrument with it actually built in. So I find it really, really cool. You open up the back here and you can actually see the hammers up in the corners. And what do those hammers do? Well, they make it feel amazing to play. So I love this. I will hook this keyboard up into MIDI. I'll use it to play through either Pianotech or Keyscape, one of the beautiful sounding piano sounds on my computer for production purposes. And yet I actually feel like I'm playing a real grand piano. So I just wanted to make sure to shout out this instrument as well because I've been really enjoying using it. Again, if you want to learn more about this, check out the link in the description. That's an affiliate link for me, so it really helps me and Casio out. And one more big thank you to Casio for sponsoring these episodes. I enjoy doing them so much, and it's great to work with a company that wants to support really quality education going out for free to all of you. All right, let's get right back into the episode. So I'm kind of curious if I can just ask more of a question I'm going to ask like pretty much everyone who comes on this podcast. What are 3 of your favorite voicings? Maybe because they have played a big role in your playing, maybe because you had a special moment with them where you were like, I'm going to insert this everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, do any come to mind?
Sure. You know what's funny? The one that everyone says. Can I do the one everyone?
Please.
I feel like everyone says is this one. That and this, they're just inversions of each other. Everyone loves to do this one, and I do too. I love this voicing. Sounds great.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'll just start with that. Start with the really basic one that everyone likes.
Do you call it a major 7 sus2?
I guess so. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I have a lot of voicings that for these I call them like triad plus 1, just like a triad plus another note. Like especially second inversion. Actually, you know what? This is my favorite voicing in the world. It's the second inversion triad. It sounds so good. It's like a pyramid, where you have like the bigger block on the bottom, the fourth on the bottom and then the third on top of it. And then you've got a 6 on the outside, which is really nice. So yeah, if you're doing this, it's so nice. If it's in the context of, it's that, it's really nice. A sus chord. And then if you just add one more note to this, you get so much color, right? I mean, yeah. So that's
also
pretty simple.
It's kind of can work as that 3.
Oh yeah.
So sorry, I was putting an E on the bottom.
Oh, E on the bottom too. Oh yeah, yeah, that's great as well. Yeah. So yeah, this shape is great, or this one. Another one. Let me see. Maybe it's not so much a voicing as it is an idea, but I love this so much. I love this a lot. Something like that, or like, especially if you're in the context of like, let's say I was going to E flat. I go like. This, especially this is so awesome to me because I think about Barry Harris a lot. I think about his scale, and this to me is actually B flat major. Like, this is a B flat major chord to me, even though it doesn't have, because it's in the scale. I think it's like a B flat major scale chord to me, if that makes sense. And because it's this. I can do it here, something like wait, what was I doing again? That's funny. Yeah, that would be this, like that. Yeah, I love that. I don't know. Gosh, I don't know. What do I like to play?
I mean, it technically was 3, so
Oh yes, it was.
You did the question, but you can totally, if you got more, please.
Here's another one. Very similar. This is like, and this is another Barry Harris idea. This is me about to play, like, if I was about to play, say, a B flat minor, like whenever I play Misty, I always go. So this is inside of this scale. This would be like as if you were playing this is another Barry Harris scale, like as if you were playing like a D flat major diminished sixth, which is basically like playing a B flat natural minor with an A also. And so inside of that is this shape. So it's almost like it's just like so pretty to play a half diminished, like that's like E flat half diminished almost. So, and then it's like you have some notes from the diminished and 2 notes from the minor 7. So then you can resolve that in the middle if you want. Oopsie. Sorry. Anyway.
That's beautiful, man.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a fun one. So they're almost more like not normal, like chord voicings, I guess. Well, not normal,
Yeah, but they definitely like perk your ear up. Yeah. And yet, as you just explained, make total sense,
Yeah.
Not that they necessarily have to, but
right.
That's beautiful. And
Thanks.
So, okay, next question. I'm going to piggyback on this one. Are there any specific, maybe harmonic movements or progressions that you've taken from classical music?
Yeah.
That come to mind where you're like, I love this.
Oh yeah. So very similar to what I was just doing. So let's do what's the one, the Chopin one, the Nocturne number 2 that everyone knows. Is that the one? Mm-hmm.
What was that what you did at the end there?
So But he does do this. He does play this exact chord that I was just talking about a minute ago, which is like, it looks like a D major over B flat. But to me, this is a B flat major scale, but with that diminished sixth in it, which also is a great scale for E flat. That's like an E flat Lydian chord. Right. So that's like the same as playing this. To me, it's still E flat. This is an E flat scale. Well, Lydian. You know. And then I just did the B flat sus, which would be the same as F minor, which has this in there, so I can do, this is too fast. I don't know if I'm just kind of blazing through. I'm trying to get as much as possible, and I think it'd be more fun. I'm just gonna go wild today, I don't care. So it's basically that. Okay. This Barry Harris diminished sixth scale for A flat, really. So that's when I go. That F minor thing, and then just alternating. And then I have, or I could go like. There's so many ways I could do it. And then just a normal 2/5. Except I go here.
You know what it really strangely just reminded me of for some reason? Hearing you do that motion in that context just immediately made me think Disney choir.
Yeah.
I don't know why, just like those
It
old
is very
recordings.
Disney.
Yeah, that is so pretty though. Yeah, so hearing you take some of those Barry Harris concepts of alternating between the, let's say, diatonic
Right.
chord and the diminished chord, and then actually putting it on like a real melody from a piece that most people would recognize.
Yeah.
Really special.
But Chopin was doing that stuff too. Like if you look at it, there's moments where he does stuff like this. But how is a C sharp minor over B flat when it's the 5 chord? Oopsie. You know, that's like Chopin stuff, you know. But anyway.
So besides Chopin, are there any other classical composers that you've taken stuff from?
You know, earlier this year I was checking out Bach, but not in like a very deep way. I was just noticing as I'm getting more into like Barry Harris scales, like I would just like listen to a piece, probably like a slower one, or I would just slow it down on YouTube, and then I would just like read the notes and just be like, oh, that's this scale, that's this scale, that's this scale, that would be the scale, that would be the scale, like in terms of like the Barry Harris way. It's like, oh, that's the major diminished sixth, that's the minor diminished sixth, that's this, that's that, and just like, oh, Phrygian dominant, boom, and just like watching the whole thing and realizing that it's never not included in Barry Harris's system, which is so cool to me. So on a surface level, some Bach, but it's not like I could play you an example of that. That's just more something I've been checking out, I guess.
That's really fascinating.
I would like to get more into Bach.
That distinction of tying Barry Harris's method all the way back to Bach was like one of the first really kind of recorded masters in a way.
Yeah, he really figured it out. Like Barry Harris really figured out like classical harmony really deeply. And
amazing.
Explained it in a way that was like so much clearer to me than all these other ways I was hearing. And the people that were teaching it to me, not to throw shade at anybody, but no one was really improvising with the way that they were teaching it. Seemingly these people who had all the information were not really improvising with it very well. And part of me questioned if maybe we were thinking of it in the best way. And then I hear Barry Harris talk about it, and then I see people like improvising that type of harmony with those sorts of ideas. I'm like, I think this is kind of the way to think about it anyway.
Would you say when it comes to improvisation, the Barry Harris methodology has been maybe the single most influential method?
No, but it's like reinforcing what I do. Like, it's funny, like, I think I really think about that stuff when I'm like, yeah, when I'm coming up with arrangements or learning new voicings or learning like just like how to think of harmony. But then when I'm performing, there's no like real formulaic way. I'm not going like, oh, and now I need to play the, the A flat minor diminished six for the,
Sure.
It's more just, I think that the schools of thought, or rather the people that influenced me the most in terms of soloing would be Mulgrew Miller or Herbie Hancock or Wynton Kelly, people like that, Cedar Walton, yeah.
Can I ask you to elaborate a little bit about why those specific choices?
Yeah, Herbie for me, I think Herbie's the person. I feel like I play like very bootleg, like slow Herbie, basically. Yeah, like his solo on Witch Hunt is one of my favorites, from the Wayne Shorter tune from Speak No Evil. Yeah, I remember my teacher in college once made me transcribe his solo. I believe it was on Witch Hunt. And then after I learned how to play it, he then said, okay, now I want you to go home and change all the notes, but keep the rhythm the same. And I did that, and it still sounded like Herbie. And that blew my mind. Like, I was not trying to make it sound like Herbie. I was like trying to make it just totally different. And it still felt like him. Because, and then I learned very quickly that, rhythmic phrasing is like the thing. Like, if you phrase rhythmically really well, it sounds great. Like, that's why when people play free, they still sound great. Like, you don't even have to play the harmony. That's why when McCoy Tyner plays the most random stuff, it's so swinging, it's so pocket, the time is so good.
Yeah.
Like when he does, like if you sing the solo for a passion dance, just in terms of the rhythm, it's very interesting. Like it's like, it's so swinging. So yeah, of course when he's superimposing all these other keys, of course it's going to sound good. Like, that would sound good on a snare drum. So,
that's a really interesting point.
Yeah. By the way, there's a person on the bandstand in every single show that is never playing in the right key, and that's the drummer. And what happens if the drummer has really good time and really good rhythmic phrasing? They sound great. And what happens when they don't? They don't. Like, so the same rules apply everywhere else. So Herbie was a really big thing for me, because then I realized, like, oh man, rhythmic phrasing is the game. And then quickly realizing that all the best improvisers have amazing rhythmic phrasing. Chet Baker has amazing rhythmic phrasing. Dexter Gordon, Miles, of course. Miles has incredible rhythmic phrasing. Wayne, or Mulgrew Miller, I love his rhythmic phrasing. So that's why those guys matter to me a lot. I realized, like, the rhythmic phrasing is amazing. Wynton Kelly, dude, incredible rhythmic phrasing.
Yeah, the feel is just
so springy and elegant, and
Yeah, it's so true. And Wynton Kelly, I love so much because I feel like he is oftentimes kind of moving between different types of language a little bit.
Yeah.
And yet just rhythmically, it's also in the pocket. Something I've worked on with students is kind of like looking at how he might transition from maybe something we would call more blues language into more bebop language, and just kind of those smooth transitions in his playing. And then it all becomes Wynton Kelly language, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that description.
Hearing you do that rhythmic version of McCoy Tyner's solo, that was really cool. And I'm kind of curious, I think I even saw a video of you recently in like your Instagram story where you were doing some kind of sung rhythmic something. And I wanted to ask you about it. Do you have any tips for working on rhythm, for singing rhythm? Are there certain processes that you've followed in order to improve your own rhythm, certain methods that you've followed, anything like that?
Yeah, I sing rhythm all the time. I love singing rhythm. I beatbox all the time. I sing solos like that all the time. And every day I do practice going like, I practice that so that way I can practice. Because really what you're doing when you're beatboxing like that, or when you're dictating rhythm, you're audiating it. You're actually practicing hearing it. And something I've learned recently is that when you have a physical limitation in some way, it actually can like hinder your ability to hear it well. Like it's this weird thing where like if my technique is like sketchy on piano, if I'm like late on something, then I start to hear the time later too. And then the same thing goes with like just internally, like if I'm beatboxing, the more like adept I've gotten, the more I can like reinforce my feeling of the time. At least for me. I know maybe some people it's more internal, like, but for me, it is like a physical thing.
That's
so
really
I literally practice like every single day. Like it probably annoys my friends, but anyway. But yeah, and then back to like that thing I was saying, like getting good at something or understanding something is loving it. Like if loving something is the key to getting good at it, the more I can love rhythm, the more I can enjoy a rhythm, like really like obsess over like, man, I love how this feels. It's like, it's springy or it's, or it feels strong or feels serious or it feels like funky and funny and light and whatever. And then I can sing it and hear it internally and recreate it like, and I'm just loving it and enjoying it and feeling it, then yeah, I'm going to be able to implement that when I play. Like, and yeah, I think for instance, like playing pocket, especially like hip hop and stuff like that, where, you know, you do want to be able to have like really flexible time feels. You want to be able to play like right on top. You want to be able to play back and in between and swung, the 16th note of swung sometimes, the 8th note of swung sometimes it's both. The more I grew to love it, the better I got, and the more I grew to love it, and just, you know, so yeah, and singing it all the time, you know, just like really trying to like nail it, you know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So do you actually play any drums, or would you say you're like a vocal
it's all
drummer?
just vocal. Yeah, I can play a kit, but it's not very good. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I just practice like singing it. So I sing rhythm all the time. I sing drums all the time. Yeah.
Are there any drummers who have been particularly influential on your way of
dude,
thinking?
Yeah, of course. I think, well, at least in my personal life, my friend Luke Titus, I think, has been the biggest influence for me recently in hearing time, because he has such accurate time. He really is like one of those like really, metronomic's not the right word, but he's capable of that for sure. Just keeping perfect time. He can start a tune at 98 BPM, and if this tune is 8 minutes long, at the end it'll be 98. I mean, and he'll just be a locomotive the whole way through. And learning to hear tempo really clearly. I've gotten so much better at that with him, playing with him and like hearing a tempo, where like now when I play solo piano, I can pretty much keep the tempo the same the whole way through, which again means that I love tempo. It means I understand what a specific tempo feels like. I love it. Of course I can remember it if I love it. And of course I'll be able to maintain it for 5 or 6 minutes because I love the tempo. But if you don't love the tempo, you're not going to keep good time. Anyway, but he's really good at that. He like, you know, so he's been really big. Playing with Nate Smith recently has been a really awesome experience. I've learned so much just about like the art of drumming. The way he plays with his left hand on the snare is so amazing. I mean, he uses his entire arm, his elbow, his wrist is so twitchy, and like when he's like doing rolls, he's rolling it with his wrist, with his elbow, with his shoulder, like everything is, his fingers obviously, like everything is, it's like so cool. Maybe that doesn't relate as much to like rhythm, but just like drumming in general, I think it's really cool watching him play.
Well, maybe it relates to beat making, I would imagine. So what's your process look like for things just like sound selection, choosing which drums you're going to use? Do you have any go-to sets that you use or that you've created, and what's your process been for kind of determining this is part of the sound that feels like Kiefer specifically?
For sure. So one piece of advice I got when I was like getting more serious about beat making, which like changed my whole thing, I love to share with people, came from Pomo, who's a really great producer. If you know who he is, he did Am I Wrong by, that's the Anderson tune. He did, what's the one he did for Mac Miller? What's the Use? The one with Thundercat.
Oh, cool. Just like an amazing pocket.
Yeah. Poem was amazing. But he told me that when I'm making beats, I shouldn't, like when you're starting out, he said, don't don't make a new drum rack every time. Like every month, put in 8 kicks, 8 snares, 8 closed hi-hats, 8 open. If you like wood blocks, put in a couple wood blocks, put in a couple cowbells, whatever. Put in some percussion. And I did that, and I just, every month I would like update it. And a lot of things would start to happen. Number one, you're curating your sounds and you're updating them, and you're improving your taste every month. If you listen to the same drums for a month, you'll know which ones are relevant to you and which ones you love and which ones you just don't like. And then the next month you have like a pretty good idea of like what direction you want to go in. And then also by focusing on them, you're getting like good at them. You're also like exploring like what bass tones work with this type of kick, or what complementary like a weirder bass tone that goes with this other kick that makes it do this other thing, kind of mastering a smaller number of things. And then last but not least, when you're like in a creative mode and you have like a really great idea, maybe it's a chord change, it's a melody, it's a groove, it's a whatever, and then you're just going through folders and it's like pew pew, like you're just like going out, like that's like the worst thing to be doing when the vibe is escaping you. It's becoming something else, and your energy, your emotions are morphing into something new. And a lot of like music writing and production, I think is a John Wooden quote: "Be quick, but don't hurry." You're not rushing, but you do need to move quickly, because the emotional makeup of your life is changing from moment to moment. And it's like being an impressionist painter. If you don't get that paint on there fast, the light is going to change. It becomes something else, and that's fine. But now it's something else. And if you do like the way the light is hitting right now, you gotta get it. You can't be fumbling around with a camera, take it if you're a photographer and the light looks a certain way and then you miss it. You didn't get the shot. You have to be really adept to that. So yeah, that making that drum rack and just having it set was great, because then you can just boom, you get the thing in there, and then the sounds that you already like, and then when you're finishing the tune and the smaller details of like, ooh, actually the snare needs to be pitched up a little bit, ooh, actually we should replace the kick, but this feeling and the spirit is intact, like, oh, that's great. So yeah, I have go-to stuff with all my, I play my upright piano on damn near everything. I have a Behringer Model D that I use for bass. I've also used a DX7 for bass tones. I have like maybe 2 different bass tones on there I've used over the years. But I usually just patch in my own bass tone each time from scratch on the Model D. And then I use a few synths. I have a UDO Super 6, shout out UDO. And then I use, I have a few like, I have a few like vintage synths I've used as well, but yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah, I use a very small set of like things. I just like know how to like morph them into like a larger combination of sounds, I guess.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing. The reason I was like, wow, is because for me personally, I feel like I've gone down the rabbit hole that can, again, be kind of paralyzing of owning way too many plugins and software synths. Just be like, I don't like really know how to use any of them as well as I should. And so, there's that almost like I just created more problems by getting more things, Yeah. So it's interesting to hear that you just know like this specific set of, mostly it sounds like hardware synths.
Yeah, I don't use any software instruments really. I've used Keyscape from time to time. Other than that, no software instruments ever.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just more fun. It's not for any esoteric reason. I wish I could attribute it to some like artistic. No, it's just more fun to turn knobs and,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it forces me to not tweak forever. Because I can imagine if I was doing, it's the same thing. It's the disease of too much. If I have all these plugins and these like software instruments, I could imagine making it and then just tweaking the knobs for months, dude. Whereas like if you record it off the instrument, you don't touch it anymore, that's it. It kind of like, I think it's good for my process to do that.
That's really interesting. Yeah. What's the word for that I always forget? It starts with an E. The sound is ephemeral. Ephemeral.
What does ephemeral mean again?
I think it means like transient. Let us know in the comments, everybody. Let us know if we got ephemeral right. But like it exists in that moment, and once the moment passes, it no longer exists, which is, transient, I don't know why I always forget the word, even though I like really love the word.
Ephemeral is a great word. I'm going to start using it.
Yeah, it's a nice ephemeral one. Well, if it's right.
Yeah, if it's right.
The comments are going to come and be like, nope.
Should we look?
No, I'd rather, I don't want to know.
The point has been made.
Yeah, I want people to let us know.
The idea has been expressed.
Okay, well, so speaking of ephemeral That's probably not a word.
It is now.
But so, one thing we talked about for a second off camera was that we've both gone through.
QAnon? No, sorry.
Hey man, come on.
Sorry,
That's not what I was going to say.
I'm going to focus. Sorry.
No, I was going to say the fact that we both had some tendonitis issues,
Right.
and that in some ways that has influenced our paths or maybe the courses that we're taking. So I'm just kind of curious to ask you, this was one of the questions I had written down for you. So I guess the more broad question is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced, whether, mentally, psychologically, or literally physically, or just, in your career? I'm just curious, are there any challenges that you'd be willing and comfortable sharing? And, what would you tell yourself looking back on those moments if you could go back and tell yourself anything at all?
Yeah, well, shoot. I think expanding on the story that you alluded to, I also had tendonitis at one time. When I was 24, I was practicing. I like ramped up my practice really fast out of nowhere, and I did not have good technique. I'm still working on that, but at this time I especially didn't. I was like, and I was trying to. I wanted to audition for the Monk Institute, which I probably didn't even have a shot, but I wanted to audition for it, and I was just like practicing really hard. And one morning I woke up and I could make a fist in the right hand and I could make a fist in the left hand, but I couldn't do this in my left hand. And I was like, whoa, oh my God. Much less like move my fingers up and down. It just like hurt. Like I just couldn't, I was like, what? And so, that was a time where this coincided with the Ray Bradbury video that I had watched around the same time, where I was looking for a way to replace that, that effort that I would be spending on practicing that now I couldn't. And now I had to so I started making beats more, really, which is like a wild thing. But yeah, I think my idea about music like really expanded in that moment because I saw my identity was a pianist, and then it became, no, I'm a musician, and if my hands don't work, I gotta be able to make music. This was also inspired by my professor at UCLA, Dr. James Newton, who, one of the great flute players ever. He won the downbeat for best flute player like 20 years in a row, something crazy like that. Anyway, one of the greatest musicians ever in my opinion. But yeah, he woke up one morning and he couldn't even play a scale. Like I think it might have been tendonitis as well. And so then he was like, all right, I'm just gonna start composing more. And he became a world-class composer, making these huge symphony pieces for mass and stuff. So I think I was inspired by that as well. If my hands don't work, I've seen someone, go through. I didn't watch him go through it, but I mean, I have heard him explain how to, maybe address that. So I just started rerouting my creativity somewhere else. So I started making beats more. Is the long and the short of it. So yeah, I would say that was probably one of the biggest challenges ever.
And in the end, it actually led to something kind of amazing.
Thanks. I loved beat making so much, and I felt like I was allowed to do it. It's kind of what you were saying earlier, getting yourself to do it versus being allowed to do something. It was this weird thing where I was like, I can't play anyway, so this is my excuse to do it, which is kind of a funny thing in retrospect, but yeah, it worked. To answer another part of the question, which was what would I say to somebody then, or what would I say to me then? Yeah, just keep expanding your identity, what you believe about yourself, what you, expand what you think the limits are, for you, or just try not to even fixate on the limits. And that's what I would say, because I think that's kind of the main issue why we believe things about ourselves, like what I mentioned earlier about when I was in high school and I thought, some people got it, some people don't. That was a limiting belief that I had, and maybe I thought maybe I'm just one of those people that just can't do this. And then beyond that, why would I practice this instrument if it's not going to lead anywhere? That was something I used to think. Who in their right mind would spend 10,000 hours on something to not get where they wanted to go? Well, first off, that's not why you do it. You don't do it just to be good. You do it because you love it. But also, maybe that's not even true. Maybe it's not even true that the practice won't work. Maybe it will work, you know?
Yeah.
So I would say to somebody my age then, or to myself, I would say, yeah, just expand your self-identity as much as you can.
So important, man.
Yeah.
That's so great to say. And I have a mental health / framing coach that I work with.
Oh, cool.
Exactly what he calls his practice, TBD, I think. But yeah, he's an amazing person who's really kind of changed my life. And one of the things he talks about is just kind of this old concept of story. So like what you said, these limiting beliefs, that would probably be his word for it, is like, well, that's just a story, right? Like the second you're sitting with him in a session and you said something like, well, it's just like, I don't understand what the point is of practicing if it's not going to lead anymore. And he would just be like, well, that's literally just a story that you're telling yourself, right? And that's a limiting story in this case.
Totally.
So yeah, that's super, super cool. All right, I got a couple funny ones for you.
Sure.
What is jazz? And would you consider your music to be jazz?
Yeah. What is jazz? I guess it's a word, it's an idea. It's music that is represented by the word and the idea. Some people like the word, some people don't like the word. I use it for certain things and don't use it for other things. When I'm talking about, Errol Garner, I'm probably talking about jazz. If we talk about my music, I wouldn't call it jazz. Some people think some people like the Nicholas Payton world would say that jazz, like post 1959, is not a thing. Sometimes I really like that idea, and then sometimes I'm have a slightly different point of view. Though I do deeply appreciate Nicholas Payton's viewpoint. I think there's a lot of really good points that he makes. I don't know. I like to call my music Black American music, because that's something I know for sure that's what that is. What is jazz? I don't know. Who knows?
That's a tough one.
And also, there's also a really interesting historical record of different people using different words. Duke Ellington saying this is American music, Black American classical music. Miles saying social music. He's like, he stopped calling it jazz at a certain point. Charles Mingus didn't like the word jazz either. Ornette Coleman. So many people throughout history. This is not I think a lot of people thought Nicholas Payton was the first person to say that. It's not true. This has been a 100-year-long thing. So it's very, very interesting. But one thing it is for certain is Black American music. I think that's pretty indisputable at this point. And I think it's important to say because as far as I can tell in my limited experience, it's one of the only real cultural musics in the world where there's ever been any negative response to attributing it to the culture that it comes from. No one's saying that Irish reels aren't Irish, So that's why I think it's a good thing to use the term Black American music, because I think there was a bit of a backlash for example, when Nicholas Payton came out with that. There's a lot of people that were upset, and I think it's a misunderstanding for them to feel upset because I think it is what it is.
Dude, that's beautifully said, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's such a good answer, honestly. That's honestly a better answer than I was even expecting. It's really, really thoughtful, and it's cool. I think for me, first of all, I completely agree in terms of A, calling it Black American music, and B, the point you make about there hasn't been another type of music where we had some kind of debate about,
it's such a,
why? Why even debate it? But I think maybe my one thing that I would add to what you said, for me, when people have asked me, oh, what do you think about jazz? If you're interested in hearing,
sure.
I kind of at this point just think jazz is basically just improvised music, because I also think about how jazz originated obviously in a very specific way, but nowadays there are so many jazz musicians or jazz trained musicians, or musicians who are trained in the Barry Harris method, or who have listened to Wynton Kelly and Oscar Peterson and Errol Garner, who then go on to potentially like bring in an entire other genre into what they do and kind of mix those things. So for me, I'm like, yeah, this is originating as jazz. This is originating absolutely as Black American music. And then it's almost like building on top of the jazz foundation. So for me, that's why I'm like, yeah, I love asking that question. Jazz for me is almost like any improvised music, regardless of genre, that is built on that original, jazz, Black American music, improvisation, language foundation. And for me, it's kind of like, if the player is coming from that place, then I think, to me, I'm like, yeah, that is jazz for me. You know what I mean? But it's such an interesting conversation.
I appreciate that viewpoint. Yeah, I love hearing like everyone's got a different view, and it's like I think it's really important to hear all the different perspectives, and I do dig that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't think there's any right answer. I'm just kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, words are tools, and we use them how we want, and then we decide when we don't like them anymore. We decide when they're useful, when they're not useful. We're making it up. We as a society, as a species, are choosing what words mean. So when people are like, "What is jazz?" I'm like, "It's up to us. Like, we decide what the word means. That's just the word." Then I ask, "Okay, well, do we need to call it that?" I think Patrick Bartley's another one who had a really great point about the use of the word jazz recently from a whole other perspective, where there are these jazz festivals that are for like, for example, Ed Sheeran was headlining a jazz festival. And he's like, why are we using the word jazz for that? Like, forget about it being jazz or not. That's actually a marketing tool to call it jazz because it's seen as sophisticated or something. And so is that not cultural appropriation, even though there's no imitating jazz in that whatsoever? You're just using it for a marketing purpose, which is, I don't know to what extent how problematic that is. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make is that words are tools and we use them for certain reasons. And so, when I think about the word jazz, I'm like, it's not as important, like, as, referring to the culture that it belongs to. I think that's actually a practical term for a word, or a practical use for a word, is to designate the culture that it comes from in a way of describing it. That's like a super useful, like a practical use of a word.
Yeah.
A useful use. That's a little redundant what I just said, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, man. Beautifully said. Yeah. Beautifully said. Okay. Another kind of fun subject that gets people in the weeds. What are your thoughts on the AI revolution?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think about it that much. Do I think about it? I don't know. I use ChatGPT a lot.
Yeah, me too, honestly. But then I use ChatGPT and I'm like, this is amazing. But then I hear what the music AIs are doing, and I don't know that I'm ready to like express an opinion about whether it's right or wrong or something like that. But certainly I hear it and I am concerned. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm concerned.
Yeah, I totally get it. So something about music that I've been thinking about a lot with AI, and I think it bodes very well for people that make the music that we make, like people that improvise. I think it bodes very well for us, because there are many ways to go and enjoy music. One is just the sound of it, right? Super passive listening, just letting it wash over you, right? If you're listening to a playlist and AI pops on and you have no idea, but it sounds nice because you're doing the dishes and you're not even really listening to it, you're just hearing it, right? Yeah, like AI is going to be extremely useful. However, just for example, in my own musical fandom, the stuff that I love about music is not necessarily the sound, but musicianship. I love musicianship. I love watching the magic trick of, somebody, for example, like when Roy Hargrove with his band, I remember one time he started a song just by like taking his trumpet and just going, and they all started at the same time and had the tempo already going on beat one. And I remember when I was in college, I was like, whoa, those guys are good. There wasn't even a count in, or like James Brown used to do similar things where you just go, bap, and the band would just play the perfect, like that's a human element. And when I'm watching a band, a really good band, and there are a lot, it's not just musicians that are this way. There are a lot of people that watch music and appreciate and understand what it takes to do these sorts of things because of, because of that human element of musicianship, which it is, I think that the AI movement has potential to actually be really great, because think about how valuable that's going to become. If all the passive whatever stuff if a machine can just do it better. Well, now when we go watch a live show, we're gonna watch some people do some magic tricks. Watch them do some amazing, beautiful, crazy together human playing. Yeah, I think it bodes very well for people who've been working on those skills and have been doing music, in my opinion, in a really like great, like real way, you know?
Yeah, dude.
And people who, yeah, so I don't see it as a threat to that at all. Because, you know, what I love about that music is, like, you know, when I listen to Tony Williams play, I don't care that it's this, you know, that which a machine could do. I care that it's him, and that he's inventing things, and that he's listening to Ron Carter and using a human brain to like respond to it, and then trying to relate that to myself, be like, wow, how would it feel to do that? Or what's the, you know, I think that's so exciting. Like, so it could be a golden age for musicianship. You never know. It might just be a thing where it's like that actually becomes the focus, to do that which only a human could do, which is use a human brain to make music, which is very challenging. We as we learned rather quickly, AI is learning to make music faster than we are.
For sure. Yeah. What do you say we play something?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. We were chatting about Maiden Voyage off the camera.
Yeah.
Go with it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Sure. Should we just count it in and go right on it?
I mean, I don't know. You were talking about James Brown. I feel like let's not even count it.
All right, let's do it. Let's just let's just see what happens. Yeah, you want to just go right in on like that? Yeah. Right.
All right.
You're taking me to school, no?
Oh, come on, man.
Bro, that was awesome.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
It'll be funny to see, because I was also a little lost.
Well, yeah, I at one point I think I was supposed to go to the bridge and I totally did it.
Okay, I was like,
That was on me, I think.
I was like, I'm gonna see what he does. I'm gonna go with that.
I couldn't remember. Before we started, we couldn't even remember if it was ABA.
I know.
or not.
Those tunes are like actually really hard to keep the form on sometimes.
Yeah.
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 But you know what's like an amazing crutch though, for me, is when you're doing like the voice drumming.
Oh yeah. No, I mean.
I was like, that's so helpful.
Why not?
Yeah.
There's no rules.
Kiefer, so you recently just put out a new trio record. Where can people check out your music?
Yeah. Anywhere you listen to music, if you're Apple Music, if you're Spotify, I got records out there. But yeah, I just dropped a record called Something for Real, which is a live record I recorded, a live concert with Pericris Steich and Luke Titus about a year ago, and it just came out a few weeks ago. So.
And one other fun question I'm going to throw at you. If there's one record or even just like one song that you're like, man, I was really proud of that song, but it didn't get the reception I was expecting.
Oh.
If you want to like give it a little shout for people to check it out.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me see. I feel like it would have to be something from I have a record called When There's Love Around, which was mixed by Russell Elevato, who's the guy he mixed Voodoo and
wow,
so many classic
amazing.
records. Yeah, one of the best mixing engineers ever, honestly. And I think that whole record is a little bit slept on. I feel like just from the mixing standpoint, to forget what I play, I think the mix is absolutely brilliant. So as far as my discography goes, I think one of the coolest features that hasn't really been appreciated is Russ's work on that album, I would say.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing, man. Well, hopefully everyone goes and checks that out.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much for being here. And I know that anyone watching this is going to have such a good time, and they're going to just like leave this video or listening experience, depending on where people are listening, just having gained so much knowledge and inspiration, because that's how I feel right now. So really appreciate it, man. Thanks for being here.
Oh, dude, it's been my pleasure. Just congratulations on such an awesome show. It's just like so dope. I'm really happy to be a part of it. So thanks so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate it,
man.
Noah.
Yeah, dude. And until the next time.
Yeah, till next time. Peace, y'all.